He's done an absolutely superb job. We've said this for a while, and I'm not just saying it because I like him. He's very good on the TV. Him and Catalan are a very unsung duo with these games. Steve is in Indianapolis. I want to get some thoughts on all the arenas and what's going on. And he says hello. Coach, good to talk. How are you today, pal? Okay?
I'm doing great, dog. Long night last night, but it was fun.
Long night. Did you? I only saw. Did you have another game after Michigan LSU, or is that the game that you had?
No, that's the only game that we had was that one. It was a good one, though.
Good game. Oh, good. And you are funny with these games. Yeah, your great line on Saturday about playing the little walk-on Iona. Couldn't figure out why he was in the game so much. And you said, what the hell do I know? He's a Hall of Fame coach sitting over there. Let him make the decisions. That was funny with Pitino. I'm interested here on the facilities from a broadcast, from a ambient standpoint. You probably haven't been in every single one of them yet, but the Fairgrounds building, Hinkle, Lucas Oil, and Conseco, which one is the best one? Which has got the most atmosphere? What can you tell me there?
Well, I was only in two. So I was in Hinkle and I was at Lucas Oil, and so I won't even see the other one. So I couldn't answer that about the other places. I mean, I've been to Bloomington. I've been to Mackey Arena at Purdue. I will tell you this. Hinkle is a great facility. I mean, that old-time Hoosiers facility. It didn't have a great atmosphere. The best atmosphere for the game to me was last night. For some reason, we were also sitting in a nearer to the fans last night than we did at Hinkle. So I thought the Michigan people last night were extremely loud, and so I kind of felt the crowd the most last night. But really, it was in that big, cavernous type arena.
What did they break it up in two, Lucas Oil, Steve? Was it like two courts? What do they have in there? Fill me in.
Yeah, it's half and half. It's kind of like they do in the Carrier Dome, where half of the Carrier Dome is really half the court. Behind the stands is the football field. They did the same thing there, but they separated into two courts. Like they got a stanchion in the middle, which goes up high, so you couldn't see the other side, and then the other side there's a court also there. So they broke it up into two courts.
They did. All right. What are you hearing about being down in Mackey? Purdue's about an hour and a half away, and Bloomington. It's almost like, do you feel like if you were playing down there, you're almost sort of out of the mix as far as the tournament is concerned? How about not being Indianapolis if you have a game as a broadcaster or a team in one of those two campus arenas? What can you tell me about that?
Well, I know I was happy to be – I was lucky, it's just the way it fell. I was happy to be in Indianapolis for both my games, which was good, but I think, a lot of people were in Mackey, obviously, really good broadcasters, and a lot of people were also in Bloomington. And everybody thought that it was – I think the attitude of everybody was, I'm just happy we're here, and I'm happy we're having games, and let's hopefully just keep going. Unfortunately, with VCU, that didn't happen. But, I think everybody kind of enjoyed where they were and made the best of it.
All right. Do you see people walking around the city? What have you been doing on your off days?
No, nothing. I mean, here's the crazy thing. I've never really been to Indianapolis except for the Final Four. Now, I've been to the Final Four in Indianapolis, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times at least. So I'm used to being in Indianapolis when it's masses of people, hustle and bustle. So it was definitely surreal that Indianapolis was dead. I mean, like every other city in America is right now. And, so being there for the NCAA tournament in the Final Four and the place being really dead quiet was very, very weird, no doubt. And, we were in our rooms the whole time. And I got to go back next week because I'm going to be in the studio for the CBS Sports Network. And I'll be out there for another 4 or 5 days. And, if you're not on the air, you go get food to take out, you bring it back to your room, and that's it. You can't hang out with anybody. You can't go have dinner with anybody. You can't go have a drink. You can't do anything. You got to stay in your room. So, that part is tough.
Wow. So you can't even go out and take a walk, Steve?
You can take a walk. Yeah, you can take a – no, you can go – I'm sorry. You can go outside and take a walk with a mask on, but, you cannot go indoors anywhere except your room.
Wow. So you didn't see Catalan and you didn't see any of your broadcast buddies really at all for the last 7 or 8 days? Just on Zoom?
No, I mean, except when we met to go on the air, and we couldn't even drive in the same car to go to the games. So, yeah, I mean, part of the fun that I've had over the years being with Andrew Catalan and Jonathan Siegel, our producer, and Andy Goldberg, our director, we've been together for 7 years. we have dinners, we have fun, we hang out after the game, we go have a drink. It's nothing, zero. Right? Last night it was like the biggest downer ever. We had this really exciting game. We got done at 9:30 at night, and it was all right. See you guys. See you next year. You know what I mean? It was a little depressing. There's no doubt.
No, no question. All right, let's get some themes in here and get your thoughts. Let's leave Michigan out of it. Explain why the Big Ten, which everybody raved about for such a long period of time, why they have fizzled so much in the tournament. I mean, Illinois out of their second round never showed up. Purdue has a horrendous stretch overtime against North Texas. Ohio State, Oral Roberts beats them. Rutgers blows an incredible lead against Houston. Maryland won a game, but then they got blown out by Alabama. Michigan State can't get out of the wild card round. I mean, the Big Ten's taken outside of Wisconsin. It showed some life. The Big Ten was terrible here. How come?
I really wish I could give you an answer. I give the stock answer. I was asked this yesterday also, and I give the stock answer of, and matter of fact, we brought it up on the air, that, maybe the gauntlet of it being such a tough league, day in, day out, playing all these tough games, maybe it takes a lot out of you. It's hard to say. Maybe these teams weren't as good as everybody thought. You know what I mean? It's a guess. I think that playing in a league like that, and, the surprising thing to me, Chris, is Illinois. I mean, are you kidding me? I thought they were good. I thought they had a chance to win the whole thing, and to lose to a neighborhood team, in other words, being right from Chicago, and they're Illinois. I mean, you can't get where. And then off the subject, the other one that shocked me was Texas. All right, they're not in the Big Ten, but it's hard for me to understand what happened to the Big Ten, except to say maybe the league was so tough they wore themselves out, and this is where they got.
Illinois got a bad deal on one. You're right, 100%. Blame it on them. But boy, Loyola was poorly seeded. Steve, you said that when we had John a couple weeks ago, the second interview we did here in this stretch in March. Loyola is not an 8th seed, and sometimes an 8-9 team, like LSU is probably better than an 8 seed. They get a bad matchup having to play Michigan, a 1 seed. This went the other way. Loyola, as Illinois got a bad break as a 1 seed, having to play as good a team as an 8. I think Loyola here really was underseeded. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, it was a bum break for Illinois. They probably should have been a 5 or a 6, and the one shouldn't have had to play them in the second weekend. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But on the other hand, I mean, from a talent standpoint, if we were choosing up the team, me and you, and we took the Loyola players and the Illinois players, and you picked first, you'd pick first, you'd pick an Illinois guy. I'd pick second, I'd pick another Illinois guy. You'd pick third. Before we got to the first Loyola Chicago guy, we would have picked 3 players. Now, Cameron Crutwood would probably be the 4th pick in our draft between me and you, but you'd have picked 3 Illinois guys first. So, I mean, Illinois didn't show up. I mean, that's it. Now, I understand Loyola is a very tough team because of the way they play. The style is tough. They make you guard the entire shot clock. They don't turn it over. They play slow. You got to be really disciplined. You're in the Big Ten. You don't play against this kind of a team ever. And you had a 1-day prep, which obviously doesn't help getting ready for them because only 1 day in between. And they took them out. So, yeah, they were undefeated, but Illinois just was not ready to play a team this disciplined.
All right, that's number one. All right, that explains, if you want to say the gauntlet kind of wore them out a little bit, the conference. How do you explain the rise of the Pac-12? I mean, listen, they got 3 teams. They got UCLA, Oregon, USC, and Oregon State, just to top my head, and they've had an incredibly good run. Explain that. Let me hear.
They've had an unbelievable run. Now, I think the Pac-12 was probably better, because they're 3 hours behind us. I think a lot of people, especially, east of the Mississippi, don't really pay as much attention to them. But they've had some good teams all year. Now, did anybody think they were going to do this? No. So they also had some good matchups. A lot of this also boils down to what kind of matchup you get. Like you look at Oregon playing Iowa. Yeah, Iowa was a good team, but Iowa was a team that defensively struggled. And, Oregon's got a lot of good offensive players, and they showed it. They drilled them. So I think it's matchups. It's that we don't pay attention to them. I think the Pac-12 was better all year than people thought. And I think we also have to keep this in mind, Chris. They're having a great tournament. You could have a great 3 days, and all of a sudden changes everything. It doesn't necessarily mean you were great, but they're having an unbelievable NCAA tournament. There's no doubt.
Out of the 16 teams right now, how many do you think are capable of winning 4 in a row in a natural order? I don't, anybody can win 4 in a row. Don't get me wrong, but if you're not going too crazy here with karma and all that, Baylor can win 4 in a row. Michigan can win 4 in a row. Gonzaga can win 4 in a row. Anybody else win 4 in a row?
I don't think anybody else could come to win 4 in a row. It's because they're going to have to run into one of those 3 to win that 4th game. So, no, I don't think there is. And I'm not 100% sure about Michigan. I know Gonzaga and Baylor can win 4 in a row. I think Michigan has a shot to win 4 in a row. And then I don't think anybody else in the field. I mean, put it this way. If you told me right now, take Gonzaga and Baylor, you can have the field. I'll take Gonzaga and Baylor. You can have the other 14 teams. So I just don't think that there's anybody else that is capable of beating certainly those 2 teams and maybe even those 3 teams, including Michigan.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. All right, explain Rutgers' collapse in the last 6 minutes against Houston.
I think I watched the game, and I think Brendan Haywood said it right. He said they took their foot off the gas pedal, and you could see it. With 4 minutes to go, they're up 8. And I think that, and I talk about this all the time, and I've seen it. I've seen it a lot. Matter of fact, my first NCAA tournament, I had Baylor, Georgia State. Baylor was up 10 against a mid-major team with like 5 minutes to go, and they started milking the clock. And I was like, Rutgers had played great to get to the point where they were up in that game against a very good Houston team. So keep going. And especially nowadays, I don't know, I think, was Rutgers up 8? I think they were up 8. But nowadays, with the 3-point shot, what is an 8-point lead? Yeah, in the old days, when there was no clock and you were up 8 with 4 minutes to go and you could chew a minute of the clock up at a time, minute and a half, that was a different story. Nowadays, every 30 seconds, you got to shoot it. So I think that you got to, I think nowadays, like an 8-point lead, when would I start holding the ball? 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes. That's when I would start to really start milking the clock. Up until then, I would play normal. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to take crazy shots, but I don't want to take crazy shots ever. But, take a regular shot, play regular offense, attack normally, under 2 minutes. Now I start holding a little bit, and I think they just did a little tour. And they had an unbelievable year. Steve Peichel has done, they hadn't won an NCAA game since 1983. I mean, that's incredible. So what he did was incredible, and it was a shame that they could not finish it off.
Yeah, they had a 9-point lead, Stevie, down the stretch. So, I mean, there you go. Yeah, everybody seems to think that, pedal off the metal, which got them in a little trouble. Plus, they missed a big dunk, which really, really hurt them. You got to make those dunks. Oh, my goodness. You have to make those dunks. Are you surprised Oral Roberts wins 1 game? A lot of these teams can win in 1 game. Abilene Christian, Ohio, North Texas. I mean, to win the 2 games, that's a little tricky. That tells me that Oral Roberts team is pretty damn good. They win the first game against Ohio State. All right, Ohio State, they caught them flat-footed. Ohio State wore themselves out in the Big Ten final. All right, I'll buy that. But then they came back from 11 down second half to beat Florida. So they did an incredible job with the 2 games. So I'm going to assume everybody can win a game, but winning the second game makes you legit. Is that fair to say about Oral Roberts?
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say, and I agree with you. You see, there were upsets in the first round, but I mean, to think that they're a 15 seed, they didn't even win their own conference, and to beat Ohio State, who had an unbelievable season, and then Florida, who's got a 6'11" guy who's a really good player, Castleton. I mean, it was amazing. But the thing about this team is they can score. They got 2 guys right now, Asmus and Obenar. These guys are on fire. Now, I mean, they averaged 43 points between them during the season. But what they're doing in the tournament, especially maybe Asmus, I think we kind of expect. He's one of the leading scorers or the leading scorer in the country. But Obenar is getting 30 and 10, like 2 games in a row, 25 and 10. I mean, he's been unbelievable. So this team can really score. They play fast. They shoot a ton of threes. I mean, they do a lot of things that, people haven't been able to deal with. And nobody's been able to guard them. So, yes, they are legit, no doubt. I think Now, it's easy for me to say, yeah, they're going to lose to Arkansas. I mean, they should lose to Arkansas, but who knows? I don't know. But here's a 15 seed making it to the second weekend. That's a heck of an accomplishment.
A heck of a job, 100%. Are you more surprised by, say, a team like Oregon State getting to the Sweet 16, or more surprised by like a UCLA getting to a Sweet 16?
Oh, I'm definitely more surprised about Oregon State. I mean, Oregon State was picked last when the season started in the Pac-12. Now, obviously, they had a much better year than that in the league, but still, they were in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. They were down like 18 in the first half. I forget who they were playing. They win that game. They end up winning the Pac, or they're out. They had a 500 record, and now here they are in the Sweet 16. So, Wayne Tinkle's done a very good job. They got, Ethan Thompson, Steven Thompson, who played at Syracuse. His son has been really good so far. So, but one thing about Oregon State, they do play in a good league, the Pac-12. So it's not like they're going to be intimidated when they play, in the first round. They play Tennessee, which obviously was a great win. And then to go win the next game against Oklahoma State with the best player in the country is just incredible. So you got to give them credit. And they've got a shot in this game because Loyola's a really good team, as we've said, but from a personnel standpoint, Loyola doesn't really have guys that scare you. And so I'm sure Oregon State is not going to be intimidated because they play in the Pac-12. UCLA, I think UCLA is a very good team. I had their first game. They lost two big guys early. Chris Wright was one of their best players. They lost him early in the year. And they've done a heck of a job considering they're not that big, they're not that deep. Mick Cronin's a good coach. They're very good offensively. And this kid, Juzang, who transferred from Kentucky, is on fire right now. I mean, he had 3 games. He scored like 67 points in 3 games, his first 3 NCAA tournament games. So I'm not surprised by UCLA being where they are. I think they got a good matchup, obviously. They got a little lucky. I mean, they beat a good BYU team. They beat Michigan State. Then they had Abilene Christian. Again, what we talked about. Is Abilene Christian, how hard is it for one of those teams to get to the Sweet 16? Well, it's really hard, as we said when we started talking about this. That's why Oral Roberts is the only one of those teams that's really there. But I think UCLA, I think they got a shot against Alabama.
Yeah, I like the Alabama. Alabama's going to have a game here, Steve, where they're going to look awful because they're going to hoist 43s and make 6 of them. And they're going to be ugly, and they're going to lose. They're going to get frustrated, and it's going to be a disaster. There's going to be a game like that. But I'll tell you right now, when they got it cooking, that's a hell of a team. They got a lot of offense. They got 4 or 5 guys who are very good offensive players, and they are relentless. And I think they will beat Houston. No, I think they might lose to Michigan, but and they will have a bad game because you're not making 6 games in a row like this. It's impossible. But that team, when they got it cooking, Alabama can beat anybody in the country. What's your take on that? Let me hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think the UCLA Alabama is going to be a good game. I do think Alabama's going to win. Now, I had Alabama in their first game against Iona, and they were terrible. They couldn't make a shot. John Petty, who's like one of the best shooters in the country, was awful. He couldn't do anything. Now, last night he comes back and he has a big game. They made 16 threes last night. And what you said is true. If they were for them to win a national championship, they're going to have to win at least one more game against good competition where they don't shoot well. And, yeah, they are good defensively, but they gamble a lot so that if you don't turn the ball over against them, you can get some quality shots. But, yeah, they have a lot of weapons. The kid Quinterly, the transfer from Villanova, was off the bench, is, really good. Alex Reese, he made the biggest shots against Iona. He also played well last night. And Herb Jones is a nightmare because he's 6'8", and he guards 1 through 5. He's not a good shooter, but athletically he's high level, and he finishes in transition, and that's what they do. They go up and down. They're one of the fastest playing teams in the country, and they have multiple guys that can shoot the ball from 3.
Yeah, very dangerous. They will lose, but they're dangerous. You're surprised? I mean, is Boeheim this good? I mean, geez. I mean, I know he's only won the 1 championship, but my gosh, every year he's in a Sweet 16. He surprises somebody. He barely gets into the tournament. And then when he gets into the tournament, he never loses. The one thing about Boeheim, Steve, that's very fair, Syracuse never loses an NCAA tournament game because he's outcoached. I think, for instance, Illinois' coach, Underwood, he was completely outcoached. I can't recall a scenario where I see a Syracuse team lose an NCAA tournament game because Boeheim didn't do his job right. And that's one of the reasons why they are always so consistent come tournament time. Let me get your thoughts on them in the Sweet 16. Go ahead.
Well, I've known Jim Boeheim for years. The guy's one of the greatest coaches ever. So let's just say that to start with. Now, I can't say that he's probably been to 40 NCAA tournaments. I don't know, something like that, 38, 40. So I can't say that, that in any one of them he wasn't out-coached once. But I can say this, on a consistent basis, they don't come much better. I mean, and the thing about them that makes it, that I think helps them be really so effective is I do all these games all around the country. And I'm always looking at tendencies, and I look at all the statistics, and you don't see anybody in the country that plays really more than and it's probably a lot. I don't see anybody except Syracuse play more than 25% zone. They play 100%, that's it, zone. 2-3, you know it's coming, and I think that people just don't know how to prepare for it. They don't see it that often. And, I mean, I was watching these games, and these guys are good coaches. Brian Dutcher, San Diego State, is a good coach, and obviously Bob Hug is a good coach, but nobody attacked this zone. Now, I played against it a lot when I was coach, a lot, and we did okay. We won enough. We won games against Syracuse. Now, it's different because we saw them all the time, so we understood what we were playing against. But I don't think people really understand how to play against that zone. And they end up firing up threes from everywhere. Not everywhere. Here's the problem. They don't attack it in the corner. They don't attack it in the short corner. And you see teams play catch, wing to top to wing, maybe throw it to the foul line. That's it. So they're playing in this like 30-foot area, 20-foot area, instead of using the entire half court and make that zone move around. Now, easier said than done. I get it. And they're big and they're long, which makes it tough. But I just think people don't know how to attack that zone. They don't play against it. And then when they face them in the tournament, it's a problem, especially when you only have 1 day to prepare, like the second team, like West Virginia only had 1 day. That makes it really hard.
I think they're going to beat Houston. What do you think of that?
I think they're going to beat Houston, too. I agree with you. Yeah, because Houston has one great shooter, Quentin Grimes. I mean, they got some other guys that can make it. But, they're going to find – and the other thing is, Boeheim's teams are always good offensively. It may take a while for them to get it going, but they got it going now. And his son, Buddy, is as good a shooter as anybody in the country. Certainly right now. Right now he might be the best shooter in the country. So they are better offensively than people think. And against that zone, you're never going to feel comfortable. And that's what Houston's problem is going to be. They're going to play against something they haven't seen. Oh, yeah, they might have seen a zone here and there, couple of possessions here and there, but not going to see 40 minutes worth. And you know what? It gets in your head. If you start out bad and you're not getting good shots and your good players are kind of struggling, every possession that goes by, you're going to start pressing more and more.
Yeah, I like Syracuse in that game. Let's end it with Gonzaga. Throughout the first game, I mean, yesterday they were pretty good. They weren't great. They were pretty good. They kind of let Oklahoma hang around a little bit. I love their defense actually more than their offense yesterday. They're going to score 85 points in their sleep against every team in this tournament. They're going to kill Creighton. So they're going to get to that regional final, which means they're halfway home, and they're going to have to get by a USC/Oregon, Michigan, Baylor, something like that to win it all. Do you see any way right now that they won't? What's your take there?
No, I think they're going to win it all. It's not going to be a cakewalk, especially when you get to the Baylors or even you get to the. I don't know if USC is really good. I know that, but I really think Oregon's going to win that game. That's not going to be an easy game. And you're right. They did let Oklahoma hang around a little bit yesterday, and it wasn't their best game. But, here it wasn't their best game, and they were up 15, 17 the whole game, really, for the most part. But, yeah, they're going to have tough games. They're not going to win this thing by 20. I mean, they're going to have to win a couple of games by 4 or 5. There's no question that are going to come down to the wire. But I think that they're good enough, and they have so many playmakers. There isn't one guy on that team. Like, when you get down to the last 2 minutes, most of the time you know who you have to really watch. On their team, who? I have no idea who you say you have to watch. You can't, there's nobody you can lay off on that starting 5 that they have. And the big kid is tremendous, Drew Timme. I mean, he is such an X factor. Nobody in this tournament, okay, Michigan's got a really good big man, Hunter Dickinson, but he's not Drew Timme. Nobody in this tournament has Drew Timme, and he is really the difference. Other teams have good perimeter players. Baylor's got really good guards and perimeter players, but nobody has Drew Timme. The combination of inside, outside that Gonzaga has, nobody's got that.
Well, the first time we talked in January, you thought the two best teams in the country were Gonzaga and Baylor. And as we are halfway through this tournament, you maintain that, correct? You think it's Gonzaga,
Absolutely,
Baylor, and
yes.
you think they're the two best teams, correct?
Yeah, I haven't changed. And really, I thought, I did think Illinois was in that next group, and I thought Michigan was in that next group, and they obviously still are. All these other teams, big surprises to me for the most part. I thought Villanova could be there, but I never thought they could be there with Gillespie hurt. So yeah, I've saw Gonzaga and Baylor. I'm still holding on that they're the two best teams. I'll give Michigan a shout out too, and I think that's it.
Steve, great job. Always a pleasure. We'll talk next week after the Elite Eight. Great to have you with us. Enjoy the back in New York here, and we'll see you in a week. Excellent job on broadcasting as well. Always a pleasure.
Thank
Steve Lappas, you got it. Steve Lappas, we'll take a timeout, and we continue. We're on Mad Dog Unleashed.